Alright, there we go. Finally had enough SR bullions to get you max limit broken. You know, I kinda wonder what the community has said about you. Oh god. Oh god. Oh god, wait. Oh, really? Wait, what? Alright, so there's been a request or two for Illustrious. I guess you guys are just wanting to move through my Oath characters. Sadly, I don't exactly remember how I got Illustrious compared to San Diego and Repulse, mostly because those two were in my starter squad. However, Illustrious was a part of my second fleet that I stuck with until level 90, 100. Alright, stop. Hi, editor me. So, before anyone says anything about this fleet, I was level 20 when I made this fleet. I saw a bunch of golds and I put them all together. This is a great example of how combining Rarity doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a great fleet. I could list a bunch of reasons why this fleet wasn't that great, but I'm sure a lot of you also probably can tell this is not a good fleet. This fleet definitely could work pretty well for PvP if you want to troll people, but that's really about it. Anyway, back to the video. She never really did get MVP much in that fleet, mostly because she was paired with another SR carrier, and I think you guys can probably imagine. You just won't give her a chance, will you? I think one of the things people want to know about Illustrious relates to her rarity. Given that she's an SR carrier, how well does she do against the big three carriers? The Fox Twins, Akagi and Kaga, and of course, the one and only Enterprise. Does she fall flat, or, short of the mark, or is she a force to reckon with? Well, let me talk about a few things. First, let's look at some stats. For carriers, I generally tend to look at 2 or 3 stats. Reload and aviation being the 2 big ones. Health pool does matter, but most backliners have considerable health pools. If for some reason they don't, they're either a light carrier, a monitor, or a very confused Vanguard ship that somehow managed to glitch its way into the backline. Anyway, so why reload? Now, before I get into this part, I just want to say that this particular point is way more PvP oriented than PvE, but there's still some carryovers to that. Reload for carriers can determine who gets to strike first. The other part of that has to do with your plane equips. But anyway, as many of us know, EVN's PvP mode is dominated by Enterprise, and there is one well-known effective counter to her, Akagi and Kaga. And this is due to their preemptive victory skill that they have, which reduces their cooldown for their first airstrike. Because of this, both of them get to attack first and can even take out Enterprise before she even gets the chance. But what does this have to do with Illustrious? Well, she has the lowest reload of the 4, with no buff to her cooldown. In PvP, this can give Enterprise a chance to roll Lucky E, making Illustrious's attack completely ineffective. The only 2 ways to be able to ignore Lucky E would be to have your cooldown be at least 5 seconds faster, because that's about how long it takes your planes to reach the backline in PvP, or at least 8 seconds slower, which, if you do this, you're already doing something wrong. If you did the latter option, the Fox Twins could potentially get 2 airstrikes off before Illustrious even attacks once. So then, if you think about it, the reload stat doesn't really give her any advantages in PvP. Now, the aviation stat is a bit more straightforward. Basically, the higher it is, the better the damage. Illustrious also has the lowest aviation as well, meaning her damage won't be as impactful as the other 3. Now, only Enterprise has about a 30-point difference with Illustrious, which really isn't that much, but the Fox Twins can have a massive difference with Illustrious if they're both together, because this triggers Ikosen. Ikosen's massive jump will allow Kaga and Akagi to do significantly more damage than Illustrious and even Enterprise. Well, as long as Enterprise doesn't Awarida. Speaking of damage, something worth noting is her equipment. Illustrious made me aware that not all carriers, and heck even light carriers, run the same loadout. Carriers generally tend to run 3 of each type of plane. Illustrious, on the other hand, uses a 6 fighter and 3 torpedo bomber setup. In other words, she doesn't have any dive bombers, which takes a good chunk of her DPS away. This is something that could be worrisome in both PvP and PvE. Not having that damage means that all fleets will take a bit longer to beat, which could potentially result in being defeated if the PvE mission is tough enough. So you might want to consider where she should be used. Now, all of this so far sounds like I'm leaning towards her really being a bad ship. This is not the case at all. Unlike San Diego, Illustrious can still be a lot more reliable in a lot of scenarios. Jesus Christ, I just said that. Oh my gosh. I'm oath to Sandy, and I even did a whole video on her, and now I'm sitting here smack talking her. Oh god. Anyway, a lot of ships have roles that they specifically cater to. Illustrious is no exception. I think the best way to look at Illustrious is as a support carrier, and there's 2 reasons why. While her loadout puts her at a disadvantage in the DPS game, she does have up to 6 fighters at her disposal. This may not be a huge bargaining chip, but having more fighters means doing more damage to enemy planes, which could potentially prevent the planes from doing damage to your fleet at all. This is a bit more of a PvE thing than a PvP thing, and even then, anti-air can generally take care of most of it, especially if you have a certain light cruiser with you. Now, Illustrious' skill is where you'll see a lot more benefit out of her. As you all may know, after releasing an airstrike, she'll apply a shield around the Vanguard that allows them to tank damage, which from what I've seen includes collision damage. This allows your Vanguard to survive a lot longer, especially when paired with a healer light carrier like Shoho or Unicorn. This can help out a lot if your Vanguard is taking a lot of damage then it can be healed, as it can give them a little bit more breathing room to deal with. What's nice is that the shield is based on her health, which means that it can be boosted with the use of toolkits, but note that the bonus is only about up to 100 health, as the max health boost you could get is about 1,000, and the skill is 10% of the health pool. So I'm not sure just how effective that boost is, especially since you do sacrifice the up to 200 aviation boost for steam catapults, which would make her torpedo bomber, especially a Barracuda, a lot weaker. Honestly, I think I'll just stick with catapults so that her torpedo bombers can still do decent amounts of damage. So all in all, I think Illustrious really isn't a bad carrier if you're not looking for some serious DPS on her. Personally, I use her in my mob fleets with one of the healers since it does take a decent chunk of damage off of my front line. I'll usually stack her with Soho Kai as I can utilize Soho's aviation boost to squeeze a little more damage out of those torpedo bombers. Of course, for PvP, she may not be the best to use for advantages, but that skill does give your Vanguard a little bit more health and does make them a lot more annoying to deal with in general. Of course, I don't think I need to make a suggestion about a DPS carrier for PvP, as I'm pretty sure you all know the options. Anyway, I think as long as anyone looks at Illustrious as a support carrier, they don't think you'll have a great time with her. Alright, those are my thoughts for Illustrious. Sorry for this video taking longer than I had imagined. I did throw out the script and reworked it a little bit. Also, didn't help that life's been butting in a bit lately. But anyway, I believe I'll be working on the Starter Trio and Ayanami next, so look forward to that one. If there's a character you would like me to share my thoughts on, feel free to comment down below. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next livestream or video that I do. Until then, I'll catch you all later.